What if I told you that avoidant people do not always create distance because they stopped caring? Sometimes they pull away because their mind is searching for what feels safe and manageable to them. Many people misunderstand avoidant behavior. They see the silence, the withdrawal, and the sudden emotional distance when things become deeper, but they do not see what is happening underneath. They assume avoidants do not want love, but the truth is often more complicated. Avoidant people are not always escaping love. They are often escaping emotions that feel overwhelming, intense, or threatening to their sense of independence. And this difference changes everything. Many people lose an avoidant connection because they focus on the wrong things. They try to give more attention, more reassurance, and more effort, believing that stronger love will bring the person closer. But what an avoidant often notices most is not how much you chase them. It is how safe they feel around you. One of the strongest qualities they are drawn to is emotional groundedness. Being grounded does not mean acting like you do not care. It does not mean hiding your feelings or ignoring your needs. It means staying connected to yourself even when someone else creates distance. Most people struggle with this. When someone they love pulls away, their mind immediately starts searching for answers. They replay conversations, analyze messages, question their actions, and wonder what they did wrong. They start believing the distance means something about their worth, but being grounded means understanding that someone's need for space is not always a reflection of your value. Sometimes it comes from their own fears, attachment patterns, and emotional struggles. Avoidant people often expect a certain reaction when they pull away. They expect pressure, emotional chasing, repeated questions, or attempts to force closeness. But when you respond differently, something changes. When you stay calm, steady, and secure within yourself, they experience something unfamiliar. They realize that someone can care deeply without trying to control them. They expect you to panic. Instead, you remain centered, not cold, not distant, not trying to punish them, just secure enough to say, I care about you, but I'm still okay within myself. Your need for space does not take away my worth. That kind of emotional stability creates a different atmosphere. It feels safe instead of overwhelming. But groundedness does not mean allowing someone to hurt you or ignoring your own feelings just to keep them comfortable. It means having the strength to feel fear, sadness, or uncertainty without letting those emotions control your actions. That is emotional maturity. That is self-control. That is knowing your reactions belong to you. Many avoidant people associate emotional intensity with pressure. They connect conflict, panic, and constant reassurance seeking with feeling trapped. But a grounded person creates room to breathe. They do not turn every moment of distance into a crisis. They do not chase from fear. They do not lose themselves trying to hold someone close. They stay present, calm, and emotionally secure. Think about a time someone pulled away from you. Maybe you sent extra messages, over-explained yourself, apologized for things that were not your fault, or tried harder to bring the connection back. And the more you chased, the more distant they became. Not because you were not enough, not because you were impossible to love, but because the reaction may have reinforced their fear that closeness comes with pressure. Now imagine responding differently. You still care, you still feel the fear, but you do not let panic control you. You give space without abandoning yourself. You remain kind without chasing. You stay open without forcing. You do not beg. You do not punish. You do not lose yourself. You stay grounded. And that quiet confidence is often the quality that helps an avoidant person finally feel safe enough to move closer. You stay warm. You stay emotionally available. And that kind of stability can feel completely unfamiliar to an avoidant person because it challenges a belief they may have carried for years, that closeness always ends in pressure, conflict, or emotional chaos. When they create distance and nothing falls apart, when you remain calm and balanced instead of reacting from fear, something begins to shift inside them. A small opening appears in the defenses they have built around themselves. That is the power of emotional groundedness. It communicates safety, and emotional safety is something many avoidant people struggle to ask for, even though it is something they deeply need. When you stay centered, they slowly begin to realize that being close to someone does not have to feel overwhelming. They start understanding that connection does not always come with demands. They begin to see intimacy as something they can experience instead of something they need to escape. This does not mean ignoring your own needs. It does not mean staying silent when something matters to you. It means expressing yourself from a place of calm instead of fear. Instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of losing yourself in anxiety, you stand firmly in who you are. Instead of begging for reassurance, you communicate clearly. Your energy becomes something like, "I care about this connection. I am here. We can talk when you are ready, but I will not abandon myself just because things feel uncertain." That kind of emotional strength is powerful, not only to avoidant people, but to anyone who values a healthy relationship. It shows self-respect, it shows maturity, it shows emotional awareness, and people can feel that kind of energy even when they cannot explain why. When someone who has learned to survive by keeping others at a distance meets a person who remains calm and secure, they notice the difference. You show them that their need for space does not destroy the bond. You show them that emotions do not have to become overwhelming. You show them that closeness does not have to activate fear. And in that moment, you become someone they can begin to trust in a way that may feel completely new to them. Trust is where deeper connection begins. There is something rare about a person who can respect someone's need for space without punishing them, chasing them, or trying to force them to open before they are ready. Many people only know two reactions. They either hold on too tightly because they are afraid of losing the person, or they completely shut down to protect themselves. They either overwhelm the relationship with fear, or they disappear emotionally to avoid being hurt. But the person who can stay in the middle, connected without chasing, caring without controlling, and open without becoming dependent, becomes unforgettable to an avoidant. Because avoidant people are often familiar with extremes. When they pull away, they expect anger, they expect guilt, they expect emotional pressure. They expect someone to make them feel bad for needing distance. Many of them have learned that closeness comes with expectations they cannot always meet. They fear disappointing people, they fear being trapped, they fear hurting someone or being hurt themselves, so they create distance as a way to feel safe. But everything changes when they meet someone who does not respond with chaos, someone who does not collapse, someone who does not chase, someone who does not use silence as punishment, someone who does not make them feel guilty for needing breathing room. Imagine they take a step back and instead of feeling pressure, they feel calmness from you. You do not crowd them, you do not disappear, you do not punish them with coldness. You simply remain steady, you stay warm, you stay open. That balance creates a feeling they may rarely experience, relief. For once, they do not feel responsible for managing someone else's emotions. They do not feel like the entire relationship depends on their next move. They do not feel trapped by expectations. Instead, they feel respected. And respect can feel incredibly freeing to someone who fears losing their independence. When you give them space while still maintaining your warmth, your message is simple. I care about you, and I am okay. That message reaches the part of them that fears being controlled or consumed. It replaces fear with choice. And choice is extremely important for avoidant people. They need to feel that closeness is something they can move toward willingly, not something being forced upon them. When you are secure within yourself, you create an environment where they can approach naturally. But many people misunderstand what giving space actually means. They think space means becoming cold. They think it means disappearing, acting uninterested, or pretending they do not care. That is not emotional space. That is emotional withdrawal. And avoidant people can feel the difference. When you become cold, they may feel rejected. When you disappear completely, they may feel punished. When you remove your warmth, it can confirm their belief that relationships are unsafe. True emotional space means something different. It means staying caring without demanding. It means keeping your warmth while respecting their process. It means not shrinking yourself, not over-explaining, and not trying to force comfort before it naturally returns. You continue living your life. You continue valuing yourself. You remember that your worth is not determined by how close or distant someone chooses to be. Your stability becomes a safe place they can return to when their emotions settle, and that is powerful. Many avoidant people rarely experience someone who can respect their rhythm while still maintaining their own emotional balance. They are often used to people who take distance personally, or people who try to fill every moment of space with pressure. Someone who can stand firmly in their own emotional center is rare, and because it is rare, they notice it. A person who can hold their own space is not acting from fear. They are not trying to control the relationship. They are not desperately searching for reassurance. They are simply secure enough to love while still remaining whole. They know who they are. They understand that a temporary pause does not automatically mean rejection. They know that someone needing space does not mean the connection is breaking apart. And that kind of confidence can feel incredibly calming to an avoidant person because they no longer feel responsible for managing your emotions every time they need distance. Holding your own space teaches an avoidant something they may have never experienced before. Connection does not have to feel like a struggle. It does not have to become a chase. It does not have to be a fight over control. A healthy connection can simply be two people showing up honestly, respecting each other's feelings, and allowing enough room for both people to breathe. That type of relationship can completely change how an avoidant views intimacy. Instead of seeing closeness as something overwhelming or threatening, they begin to experience it as something safe and possible. And something powerful changes inside you as well. When you learn this, you stop living in constant reaction mode. You stop trying to fix every uncomfortable moment. You stop sacrificing yourself just to prevent someone from leaving. You begin trusting that you can handle uncertainty. You begin protecting your own peace. You begin realizing that your emotional stability does not have to depend on someone else's actions. And that creates a quiet strength that an avoidant person can feel, even without you saying a word. They notice that you are not forcing anything. They notice that you are not filling every silence with fear, explanations, or desperate attempts to reconnect. They notice that you are not turning their need for space into an emergency. And that emotional steadiness becomes attractive because you no longer feel like another responsibility they have to carry. Instead, you become someone they can relax around, someone they can come back to without feeling pressured, someone whose presence feels peaceful rather than overwhelming. The ability to hold your own emotional space without punishing, chasing, or controlling someone is one of the highest forms of emotional maturity. It means you have learned how to regulate your own emotions. It means you understand that another person's behavior is separate from your personal worth. It means you can love without trying to control the outcome. You can connect without losing yourself. You can remain steady even when things feel uncertain. And avoidant people often value this more than they know how to express because it gives them something they deeply need: safety with another person. And safety is where true closeness begins. When we say avoidant people are drawn to those who do not let their self-worth depend on their behavior, it means something much deeper than simple confidence. It means being the kind of person who does not lose their emotional balance when someone becomes distant, quiet, or inconsistent. That type of inner strength can feel completely different to an avoidant because many of them have spent years feeling responsible for how other people react to their need for space. Most people respond to distance by making it personal. They panic. They become afraid. They get angry. They blame themselves or blame the other person. They attach their value to how much attention and reassurance they receive. So when an avoidant steps back, they feel like everything is falling apart. But when an avoidant meets someone who does not collapse, someone who does not create painful stories from fear, someone who does not chase or lose themselves, it interrupts their usual pattern. It challenges what they have always expected. They expect you to assume the worst. They expect you to see their silence as rejection. They expect you to believe their distance means you are not enough. But someone who truly knows their worth responds differently. They understand something important. Another person's behavior is information about that person. It is not proof of your value. Imagine how freeing that feels for someone who has always feared that closeness would become too heavy. When they step back and you remain calm, you show them something powerful. You show them that you are not depending on their constant attention to feel secure. You show them that you are not asking them to carry your emotional world. You show them that you can take care of your own feelings. And that can be deeply comforting for an avoidant person because one of their biggest fears is feeling responsible for someone else's emotional stability. They do not want to disappoint you. They do not want to hurt you. They do not want to feel like your entire happiness depends on whether they are close or distant. That kind of pressure can make them retreat even further. But a self-assured person creates a completely different experience. You become someone they can respect because you respect yourself. You become someone they can trust because you are not using the relationship to fill an emptiness inside you. You become someone they can approach because they do not feel trapped by your expectations. That kind of emotional energy does not come from being cold or pretending not to care. It comes from real inner strength. It comes from knowing, I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I can love someone deeply without losing myself. What if the strongest message you could give an avoidant wasn't, I need you, but I care about this connection, and I'm still secure within myself? That kind of energy matters because avoidant people are not searching for perfection. They are searching for emotional safety. When your self-worth stays steady instead of rising and falling with their behavior, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. I choose this relationship, but I don't lose myself because of it. For an avoidant, that changes everything. Your presence no longer feels like a demand. They do not feel responsible for keeping your emotional world together. Instead, they experience the freedom to be themselves without carrying the weight of your happiness. For someone who has spent years fearing emotional pressure, that freedom can make closeness feel safe for the first time. Usually, when they create distance, the other person becomes anxious. The anxiety grows, the pressure increases, and the avoidant feels even more overwhelmed. It reinforces the belief they have carried for years, that intimacy always comes with emotional weight. But when they meet someone who responds with calm instead of panic, the pattern begins to break. They pause. They become curious. They start wondering if this relationship might actually be different. Maybe closeness does not always have to feel suffocating. Maybe it can feel peaceful. Your steady sense of self becomes something they can lean toward. Even when communication slows or uncertainty appears, you do not panic or lose yourself. You stay grounded, confident, and connected to who you are. That consistency creates the emotional space they often need before moving closer again. Not because they were forced to, but because they finally feel safe enough to choose it. When your value is no longer tied to how available they are on any given day, they begin to feel free to show up as they really are. They no longer feel they have to be perfect or constantly reassure you. They can simply be human. That sense of freedom is what allows trust to grow. You become someone who does not beg, chase, or constantly seek reassurance. Someone whose emotional balance is not controlled by every shift in communication. Someone who remains steady instead of reacting from fear. To an avoidant, that kind of person is unforgettable because they offer something rare, a relationship that does not feel overwhelming. Another important shift happens when you stop trying to fix them. Many people approach avoidance believing they simply need to open up more, explain themselves more, or heal faster. They treat them like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Avoidant people usually sense that pressure immediately. Even when it comes from good intentions, pressure still feels like pressure. It tells their nervous system they are not accepted as they are. But when they meet someone who allows them to simply be themselves, something changes. You do not push. You do not analyze every reaction. You do not force emotional conversations before they are ready. You do not see them as a project that needs repairing. Instead, your attitude becomes simple. I accept who you are today. I'm not here to rush your growth or force your healing. That kind of acceptance is incredibly rare. It allows them to stop waiting for the moment someone crosses their boundaries. They no longer feel they need an escape plan every time emotions become difficult. They can simply exist without feeling pressured. The truth is, avoidant people usually do want closeness. They want love. They want emotional depth. They simply need it at a pace their nervous system can handle. Many people mistake that slower pace for emotional unavailability. Often, it is not a lack of feeling. It is a different rhythm. When you respect that rhythm instead of fighting it, they often become more open on their own. They begin sharing thoughts and emotions because they genuinely choose to, not because they were pushed into it. And choice is incredibly important to an avoidant. When intimacy feels voluntary instead of demanded, they become more honest, more engaged, and more emotionally available. Many avoidant people have spent years hearing they are too distant, too private, too independent, or too difficult to understand. So when someone finally accepts them without trying to change who they are, they experience something they rarely feel: safety. You stop feeling like a threat to their independence. You become someone who understands that they simply move through relationships differently. That is something they never forget. The biggest truth is this: avoidant people often crave emotional safety even more than they crave closeness. And acceptance creates safety. Acceptance does not pressure. Acceptance does not force. Acceptance says, I see you, I respect your pace, and I want connection, not control. When they truly feel that from you, they slowly stop hiding. They stop expecting rejection or disappointment. They begin revealing parts of themselves that very few people ever get to see, not because they were changed, but because they finally felt safe enough to open. Ironically, when you stop trying to fix an avoidant, they often grow the most. Your patience gives them room to grow naturally. Your calmness becomes the space where vulnerability can appear. Your acceptance becomes the foundation where trust is built. Most people believe pressure creates closeness. With avoidant people, the opposite is usually true. Pressure creates distance. Acceptance creates connection. The less you try to control them, the more willing they become to move toward you. Because in the end, acceptance, not pressure, is what reaches an avoidant person's heart. It is what helps them stay, and it is what allows real intimacy to grow.